Oh, the fun of environmental sound effects. So welcome to a new library for Unify. This is Signs of Life Special Edition. Hello, greetings. My name is John Skippy Limcool. Nice to see you. This is a very special library for a number of reasons. For one thing, all of the sounds, the synthesizer sounds that you're going to be hearing in a little bit. In fact, here, I'll play one right now, just so you know what I'm talking about. Everything in this library is powered by these original ambient recordings that I captured 5 years ago in Costa Rica. All of these were fed through convolution reverbs that were mashed together with synth pads, with violin samples from Mega Magic Violins, a library that I created, all sorts of different things to create all sorts of synthesized sounds that are all powered by Mother Nature. So if we go over here to crystallized crickets, it's a pad. But if you listen closely, those bugs, the crickets, the frogs are in the pad. Go over here to something like, example here, I have these gentle rains and violins. So you got the combination of rain and violin pad. So all of the pads and synth sounds in this library all have organic Mother Nature recordings in the synthesis process. It's not just recording from some synthesizer, it's combined with all of these environmental sounds. This is the special edition of this library. This library originally came out for Omnisphere 5 years ago. The story is this. I went to Costa Rica in July of 2018. I took my daughter. It was a kind of a special daddy-daughter kind of trip. We got to do all sorts of great things for 2 weeks in Costa Rica. We started on the eastern side in the Caribbean. We were in the mountainous region. In fact, if you click the artwork for all the environmentals, it has photos that I took during the trip. So you can see some of the sites that we got to see where I was at. Not always recording at the exact same time as the photos, but sometimes. Right? So I record this over 48 ambiences. And if you come down here to the list, you'll see that there's now an HQ version next to many of these. And that is 192 kilohertz, the original recording that I captured with this little Tascam DR100 Mark III. I took this with me everywhere, set it down and just recorded. And as you see the environmentals, you see an HQ next to the names of a whole bunch of these. So if we go to like rain and birds and bugs and play C5, all sorts of bugs and it's lightly raining. Well, one of the cool things with environmental sounds for creative use in music is to play them down the keyboard. So if I play down low, you can get all sorts of cool things for weird haunting melodies. But check this out. That thing that kind of sounds good is actually aliasing. Because if you play the 192 kilohertz sample, this is the original sample that I recorded with my little field recorder. It's cleaner. Here's the 48 kilohertz. The 192. If you go to other samples, get to the rain, birds, and monkeys. Here's the 192 kilohertz version. There's just no aliasing. It's 4 times the resolution to the audio files. Hear all that aliasing? I don't know how well YouTube's gonna let the aliasing, but it's pretty obvious here to hear it. There's none in the 192 kilohertz versions. So I wish everything could be recorded at 192 kilohertz, but that's 4 times the hard drive space you need for those samples. So it adds up pretty quickly memory-wise. To add these bonus SEs to this library added 2 gigabytes of samples to the library. But it's worth it to give you all the cool stuff, everything in its best audio quality and so forth. You know, all the pictures. It's cool to like have it presented this way in such a cool way. Then once you get past all these environmental sounds, which go on forever, there's waterfalls and there's evening ambiences, and then you get to the pads. And again, these are the pads that are fueled. You hear the insects and stuff in it, right? But when you play chords, just becomes this cool element to the sounds that makes it not just a synth pad, you know? And then you get down here to the Z stuff. I made these like bonus patches where I'm combining all sorts of we'll cover the fast and all these things when we get to. I'm going to do a walkthrough of the whole library here in a minute, but as you can see, there's a whole bunch of Z patches. These are bonus patches that are new. So there's a total of 300 patches in this library. It's a very healthy library. Very happy with how it's turned out. So the crux of the library is you have drums and drum grooves from 3 different drum kits. If you go over here to these combos and you call up one of these, and then you go down to some of the BPM pads or even just regular synth pads that are using all this really cool stuff. Say, load this into Unify. And let's say we add maybe one of the BPM like art, like chasing butterflies. Cool stuff, you know? So, the drum grooves, all of the environmental sounds in both 48 kilohertz and 192 kilohertz, tons of pads, tons of Z patches, which are bonus patches, using those pads to make the fast is basically the pads that are like slow, but played fast. For example, here, let's play Echo Stream Simmer. This is using waterfalls and part of that sound in there. It's really cool. Some of these sounds are really cool to play. Use the mod wheel to filter it down while you have another sound come up. In fact, there's Z patches that show examples of things like that. But if we go down here to the Z synth, you'll see here's fast echo. So here's the pad, and then here's fast. So you have these really cool fast versions. if you search and say Molek, you can see here is the pad version. And here's the fast version. So there's a lot to the library. I'm not going to play all 300 patches because I'm going to pass out if I do that. But I will give you a quick tour of what you can find in the library, give you some tips along the way. So let's start. Here's the BPM drum grooves. Again, the first 5 are the original grooves that came with Signs of Life that are in the Omnisphere 2 library. Only they're now played from a drum kit and a MIDI file. So I can go to the tempo, I can speed it up, and all that kind of stuff. There's 5 of these. And because they play across the keyboard, you can transpose. Even down low, it still is really fast and great timing-wise because it's individual samples being played. It's not a loop, so we're not stretching and all that kind of stuff. So, right? Then there's the 25 combo grooves, which is combining a drums from guitar with a Signs of Life SE kit. And there's 25 of these. There's macro knobs, of course, to change everything. So change the pitch. Because it's MIDI files playing drum kits, it doesn't change the tempo. You've got high pass, low pass filtering. From the middle point to the left is a low pass filter. From the middle point to the right is a high pass filter. So we're going to get rid of low end. Decay. You even have access to the groove. You can actually change to all 25 of these grooves from any one of these that you call up. It's going to sound a little bit different because some of these different drum kit combos I've set up and changed the parameters inside of the GuruSamplers and the effects and stuff. But you can do that if you want. And if you automate that, that lets you make completely new patterns in your sequencer that are made from multiple MIDI files, because there's 25 different MIDI files for 2 different drum kits that you're changing in real time. Very powerful. You also have double time. Which you can use to make like fills in a way. MIDI volume, even on the second page, there's effects for distortion, EQ, there's a pump house. You can, and I made a very special shape for pump house that's doing more of like a gating. Now, if you want, you can bring this up and then click right here to change the shape. Those are the drum grooves. The DFD are the drums from guitar, just the drums from guitar grooves by themselves. Down here to number 4 of the SE kit. And we take this and we go from drums, guitar, and we say load into layer 1. They complement each other. Okay. Then you have different drum hits and they're tuned. So you can layer them with other things if you so desire. Layer them with themselves if you want. Say, let's add instrument 1. Let's add a timpani. So all sorts of things you can make from these. Then the drum kits, and then we get to the environmental sounds. And the environmental sounds start with airplanes, because we flew from Portland, Oregon, where we live, to Los Angeles to spend the night. And we stayed at a hotel close to the airport, where airplanes actually flew right over the top of us. Had to wear earplugs because you couldn't sleep because the airplanes were landing all night. But I went out by the In-N-Out burger restaurant there and recorded airplanes landing for a little while. And I included a couple. Cool. This is a cool afterburn. It's cool. For example, let's say that you wanted to play this, but you didn't want the beginning. You want to get to the end. You can open up GuruSampler and go to the sample start and find where you want to start. Maybe envelope a little bit so it doesn't get a click. So you have access to doing things like that. Then we get to the Costa Rica stuff. 48 to 192. And at original pitch, it's really hard to tell the difference. You need to be down about 4 octaves to hear how nice and natural that sounds. And then there's aliasing in the 48 kilohertz versions. Hear that little bit of granular stuff on the high frequencies. Yeah, it does make a very big difference to have, 4 times the data in the samples. When you're doing more extreme pitch things. But that resolution, that detail, that's still available up here. It's just you can't hear necessarily, but it's still, there is a difference. So I did this to over 40 different samples. Rain on the Roof. Again, you can't tell so much here. Down low. Hear that instant. Now listen to the 192 version. Totally different. So it's cool to have both versions. I kept the originals because they were the ones in the Omnisphere library. For those of you that are coming from that library and you want the same kind of sounds if you were doing things down in different keyboard ranges. So it goes on and on and on and on. There's Peaceful Evenings. And again, click the little artwork box and you'll get photos from the trip. So fun. These bridges, these suspension bridges were incredible. Quapos was beautiful. This was on the other side, the Pacific side, so the sunsets were just incredible. Just unbelievable. So once you get through all the environmental sounds, very interesting sessions that I did with my modular synthesizer, fed into Logic, playing audio files and combining, doing some really cool things. There's actually a YouTube video. I'll post a link in the video description to a video of me making these sounds. Another thing that was added to the library as a special edition are these textures. These are the original full length. Some of these are 1 or 2, 3 minutes long. Audio files that got little tiny pieces were pulled out to turn into these different, some of these things like the wormholes. When you get to the close brothers, the galaxy. These are the original recordings that go on and on and on. So you can play these as a background. It's kind of like the coolest synthesizer programming because all these things are changing in the audio file. It's not parameters in the synth engine. So it goes all over the place. This is just one note. So you can play this polyphonically too. And like little tiny pieces of this was pulled out to make some of the pads that you find up here. This is the full length. You can play it as a chord, as a synth. It's just that the sound is doing far more. Not all of them stay at one pitch, but most of them do. So if you compose with these, you get these evolving, ongoing, really cool so you get more out. Right? They're not all just a single note. It's like that second right there, I might have taken that to turn into this. It just does this one thing and freezes and is looped. But these textures give you the full-length recordings of everything that I recorded that I then turned into these various different sounds that you find in the pads. You know? So other sounds, there's the motion rain. Very, very cool textures. It's not all tonal, some of it's atonal. Insane rain, dark dreams. Very fun. Again, you've got control with the knobs for changing the filter. And if I want with any of these, I can open up GuruSampler, move the sample start a little bit later, and move the attack. And I have a fast synth. So just because it's a pad doesn't mean you have to keep it as a pad. You know? So as you go down, there's so many different pads. Right? So after the pads come those textures. Then we get to the bonus patches. And this is where I made basses. Again, you hear insects and bugs in there. This is a Unify layer where there's an OBXD combined with environmental sounds. There's additional BPM drum patches. I was playing around and came up with some cool. In fact, there's a groove called Monkeying Around. It's too stanky. Had to include it. There's some BPM groove. These things typically are splits, so you have a fun stuff like this to play. Again, using all the sounds in the library, but in different ways. Good stuff. There's all sorts of pads. These are fun. This is delayed injection. This is actually using a cool trick. I found I could use Jitterbox and then set it to a clocked delay of 1 plus 100%, which makes it a whole note. So it delays the playing of the second layer for one full measure. So I can play. So I can have sounds grow in some cool ways. And the second pad has a pulsing element to it. And it's still in sync because it's all been delayed exact clocked times. I didn't show you. This is cool. This is Chasing Butterflies. Right? Flutter by Butterfly. So many of these are really, really fun. Now there's a BPM groove called World Awake. I took that pad and I put across the whole keyboard. So and then the world, there's 3 versions to take the different elements and layers. Because they're just useful all by themselves sometimes. You need simpler things. And then world motivated. There's a cool big pulse. Now there's a couple of these that are like jungle dreaming and soft piano and so forth. These are kind of fun in that really lovely keyboard sounds, and then Mother Nature is on the mod wheel. So you can control the volume of Mother Nature just by moving your mod wheel. Right. The soft piano in the rainforest is lovely because you have rain on the mod wheel. Play forever in a rainforest while it's slightly raining. And the piano is the intimate acoustic that's in the library for Unify. When you first get Unify, it includes that piano. So I just put it in the rainforest. Delayed flight. Here's another one where I'm using that really cool trick with Jitterbox set to clocked, quantized BPM timing. To delay when something else comes in. Very fun. Vocalizing in the rain. We get to the synth, and this is really kind of cool. There's kind of a fast brass like that, and then there's a slower. Layer that with real brass, and it's really amazing what those types of textures do to sampled instruments of brass. Here is crystallized brass. Isn't that nice? Then synth, there's more faster patches. In fact, this one has the bongo layered in there. Then we get to the fast patches. Again, if you go Alien Pad, there is Alien Pad, the original. Fast version. So I did this to a number of the different pads. It just made sense to have some nice fast ways of using some of these. And they make lovely, complex, really nice. Really, really lovely. So many of them. And this is kind of made to be a layer. So if you say instrument 1 only, and you choose some of these other fast patches, they all work together really nicely. To make really cool sounds like that. Then you get some of the textures as the waterfall drone. And that's the library. There's a lot here. Take this one slow. Spend time with it because there's so much you can do with so many of these sounds. I found that sometimes with these sounds, you play it and you go, how am I going to use that in my music? And then you go into finding that you can put it on a pump house and filter it and find a different pitch. And all of a sudden it becomes something completely different and becomes a cool element in a groove that you didn't even think about. So spend some time, explore. It's just like us going to Costa Rica and getting to explore. Now you get to explore with some samples that are of a unique nature that are really special. So I hope this is inspiring to you. It's a pleasure to bring it to you. And thank you to all of you for your support, as always. Okay? See you in the next video, okay?